Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. And some of you probably thought about starting your very own sports podcast. Well, let me help you out. I want to tell you a little bit about Anchor. Now, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's an easy way to make a podcast, and it's free. You don't have to worry about paying a bunch of money each month. There are creation tools to allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so you don't have to worry about that. So it can be heard on apps like Spotify and Apple Podcasts and many, many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. So go to anchorfm.com and start your very own podcast today. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Hey, what's going on, Who Dat Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast. And welcome to the State of the Saints podcast live on YouTube, Facebook, or wherever you're checking out this podcast. Thank you all very much for your time. Really do appreciate it. Before I get started, I want to let everybody know that I will be a special guest on tonight's episode of the Pro Media that is hosted by Big Q on YouTube. So I'm really looking forward to that. Y'all check that out, man. You know what I'm saying? Big Q, invited me onto his show. So I'm really excited about that, man. So that's going to kick off, I think, around 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 5 o'clock Central Time. So looking forward to that, man, and talking about the New Orleans Saints with Big Q. But anyway, man, I got to talk about the topic of today, and that is three players in particular, or a few more players that won't be a part of the Saints roster this 2020 season. Now, this isn't my personal assessment, okay? This isn't mine, okay? This comes from a news article that I read that focused on New Orleans Saints. I don't want to misquote the website because I can't remember which one it was, but it was an interesting, read that I had. I want to say it was, I think it was like Sports Media or something like that. And they named three players that will no longer be a part of the New Orleans Saints once training camp is all said and done. And these three players were Mario Edwards Jr., and the other person was Nick Easton and Craig Robinson. Now, I'm looking at these three guys right here, and I have to say that I don't see anything wrong with the guys that they selected. I mean, these guys aren't world beaters, and these aren't guys that, when you think about the success of the New Orleans Saints, none of these guys are even mentioned. Mario Edwards, he was a second-round pick coming out of Florida State. He was drafted by the Oakland Raiders. And honestly, man, he didn't live up to expectations. I have a special place in my heart for Mario Edwards. I'm always rooting for this young man to succeed because, like I often say, I know this young man since he was about 15 to 16 years old, and he's a good kid. You know what I'm saying? So I've always root for him anytime I see him playing. I like to see him play, and the fact that he actually plays for the Saints, is even better. For me as a fan. But looking at him and how the Saints have him a part of the rotation. You have to say that he is definitely on the bubble and he has to perform really well. And I think that the fact that the Saints actually line him up on the inside and not so much on the outside, and you look at the emergence of a young Shy Tuttle, you have to say that it's probably going to come between him and Shy Tuttle unless somebody end up getting hurt. Then, he can probably fit into that rotation. So he definitely has to come into training camp and he has to put his best foot forward. He does have a history, and this is not me saying this, but him being a tad bit lazy, and being complacent. When he was at Florida State, when he was recruited by them, I think he ballooned up, man. He gained about 30, 40 pounds or something like that, and they had to put him on a diet and nutrition plan, which he slimmed back down, and he was able to make himself a second-round pick. So hopefully, man, he don't become complacent, and he goes out there and he tries to fight for a roster spot, and he gets one. The next person is Nick Easton. As we all know, Nick Easton, the Saints signed him from the Minnesota Vikings. They had him in a rotation with Andrus Peat. It was one of those things where the Saints were thinking about, making training camp a little bit more competitive for Andrus Peat. As we all know, that Andrus Peat sometimes he'll go out there, he'll play really well, and then they got other times where he'll just slip up and just be playing soft and just allowing the defensive end just to run roughshod all over him. So the Saints brought in Nick Easton just in case. But the problem was Andrus Peat played really well in preseason and in training camp. He put his best foot forward. So Nick Easton was on the sidelines until Andrus Peat ended up getting hurt. Nick Easton comes in and did a pretty good job, man. I mean, the running game didn't slack off because of him. Neither did the passing game. So Nick Easton was a guy that I feel like the Saints just kind of brought to the organization just to try to compete with Andrus Peat. But now as we see, Andrus Peat signed a 5-year contract, so that tells us right there that the Saints have high hope for Andrus Peat and Nick Easton, who still has a contract. I think the Saints are going to end up probably cutting ties with him. I don't think Nick Easton wants to be a backup. I think he feels like he can't be a starter on somebody's team. It's almost like, Calamente back in the day. Calamente was a rotating offensive lineman, but eventually the Houston Texans called him and he answered the call. You know what I'm saying? So I look at him and I think about, what he can bring to the table and also other offensive linemen that came with the New Orleans Saints. So I feel like he's part of that same mode. I feel like Nick Easton believes he is a starter in the league, and I think he's probably going to ask the Saints, to possibly let him go or try to trade him in order for him to go out and spread his wings and finally be a starter. Nick Easton isn't one of those guys that don't deserve to be a starter in the league. He's just one of those guys that goes to a team, and it just seems like it's always bad luck every time like he comes in. You think about for the Pittsburgh Steelers when he went there. They already had offensive line. They already had an offensive line, and he was competing with one of the best offensive lines in football at the time. Then he went to the Baltimore Ravens, and it was the same thing. And then you go to the New Orleans Saints, and now you're competing with a young guy who has his whole career ahead of him. So I have to say Nick Easton, has had a little bit of bad luck, but I think he deserves to be a starter on somebody else's team. It probably just won't be the Saints. And finally, a guy that I feel like is probably, an unsung hero, a guy that a lot of people respect in the Who Dat Nation, is Craig Robinson, man. Craig Robinson was the guy that they selected as the third person to possibly not be on the Saints team. Look, I like Craig Robinson a lot. Craig Robinson isn't the fastest, he isn't the strongest, he isn't the tallest, and he's not even the most physical linebacker that you're ever going to find. But there's one thing that Craig Robinson has and I love, and I feel like a lot of people don't have this, and that's heart. Craig Robinson, when he does come into the game, that he's in there. You'll see him make a play or two. You'll see him catch an interception. You'll see him force a fumble. You'll see him pick up a fumble. Craig Robinson always plays hard. And I never understood for the life of me why Craig Robinson didn't get more opportunities for the New Orleans Saints in the linebacker rotation. He usually comes in when one or two linebackers go down in the course of the game. Then you'll see Craig Robinson come in. You'll see him come on a blitz, get the sack. You'll see him get an interception. You'll see him do something in a game that you would be like, man, Craig Robinson out here balling. I never understood why the Saints just put him on special teams. They made him a captain, which shows they have a lot of respect for him. He's been a captain for the last 3 years for the New Orleans Saints on special teams. But I just never understood why they just didn't want to put him in a rotation. Maybe it was the fact that they felt like he wasn't fast enough to go out the tight end or the running back. Or maybe they felt like he needed something that they felt like he was missing. But I always like Craig Robinson, man. But looking at this linebacker court, man, looking at some of these young guys coming in, looking at the new breed of linebacker that the NFL is falling in love with, the guys that can run sideline to sidelines, the guys that almost have similar speed to running backs and tight ends, and the guys that can be able to take these tight ends down to the ground by themselves. It looks like the world is moving past Craig Robinson, the type of linebacker that he is. And it's unfortunate, man, that he's most likely going to end up, leaving the team. But I really feel like, as long as he continues to play well on special teams, he's going to continue to have a job. Now, this is one of those guys that I have to say I disagree with the article on, because I just feel like Craig Robinson does a lot for the New Orleans Saints, and his presence is felt. Now, these other guys, you can kind of say, okay, I understand, because, the Saints can go forward without these guys. But when it comes to Craig Robinson being on special teams and being a leader, and also showing, from time to time that he can play that position really well, why would you want to get rid of those guys? But those are the 3 guys that they selected, and that's my opinion on that. But right now, I'm going to open the floor to you all to see what you all have to say. Saints fan 1021 says, "What's up, TJ?" Jerry Port in the building. We got Jasper. We got Marvin. Jerry Port says, "I felt you coming in, TJ. Good timing, man." Yeah. I normally always try to come in between 1 and 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So most likely y'all probably always catch me around that time, unless I'm doing something that's that makes me really really busy at the time. Chemo Slice says, "My dog TJ, the host." What's going on, Chemo? Joe in the building. Key Down South says, "One thing he has in favor is the ability to play defensive tackle and defensive end." Yeah, that's one thing that Mario Edwards does, and he has that for him. But once again, the New Orleans Saints, I just feel like when it comes to rotation and guys, being a part of that rotation, I don't know if he'll be able to fit in. I don't think that they thought that Shy Tuttle would be able to get opportunities the way that he did. Maybe they didn't think that Shy Tuttle would emerge the way that he did, in his first season. But he definitely given people like Mario Edwards a run for their money. Robinson is a energy guy. We need those type of players in the rotation. Yeah, I always felt that way. Jasper, and I'm going to be honest with you. When I think of people like Craig Robinson, and this might be kind of controversial to some, but when I think about Craig Robinson, he reminds me so much of Pierre Thomas. Pierre Thomas was one of those guys that, in my opinion, the Saints didn't want him to be in the starting running back rotation. They didn't want him to be on the field. I was going back and I was looking at just games where the Saints would just go out here and sign guys, and just so they wouldn't be able to play Pierre Thomas. And anytime Pierre Thomas comes into the game, man, you see splashes. They wanted so badly for people like Reggie Bush to work. They wanted him to work so bad. The Saints wanted him to be an every down back so bad. And it just seems like to me they did not want Pierre Thomas to be the running back. But every time he comes in the game, he does something special. And it had people in the Who Dat Nation saying, man, this dude needs to be starting. And eventually, as time went on, as years went on, Pierre Thomas was a part of the starting rotation. You're talking about a guy that was given absolutely nothing and earned everything that he got. And that's the way I look at it with Craig Robinson. I look at him as a guy that Sean Payton, Dennis Allen do not want in a rotation. They go out there and they go get all type of other guys. They go out there and get Manti Te'o. They go out there and get Kiko. They go out there and get Alex Anzalone out the draft. They get all these different guys. Caden Ellis. Just so many dudes. I'm not even putting Demario Davis in there because that's not fair. Demario Davis in the class by himself when it comes to the linebackers. There's a huge drop-off between him and everybody else. But Craig Robinson, man, it just seems like to me like he's getting the Pierre Thomas treatment. And just like Pierre, anytime Craig Robinson comes into the game, he's in there. And, I just don't get it. I don't know if it's just stubbornness. I don't know if it's just something that they see inside of Craig Robinson that they feel like just don't mesh when it comes to being on the field on Sunday. I don't know what it is. But we all know that Sean Payton, he likes his type of guys. He likes his dudes. He likes the guys that he drafted. He likes the guys that he finds hiding under a rock or hiding in the woods somewhere nobody even heard of. He likes to bring those guys forward to actually show people how much of a genius that he is. I don't know what it is, but Craig Robinson, to me, is the modern-day Pierre Thomas, a guy who is given absolutely nothing, and when he gets on the field, he show you that he is everything. I don't get it. I really don't. But like I said, those are the 3 guys that I feel like are going to be, the article says should be on the bubble. But, I can bring you some guys that I feel like could possibly be in trouble. Number one guy, we talked about this on several occasions. It has to be Tre'Quan Smith. Tre'Quan Smith is definitely the guy who I feel like is on the bubble, could possibly lose his job. There are so many young wide receivers who I feel like are going to come in and they're going to give Tre'Quan Smith a run for his money. Tre'Quan is really going to have a solid camp in order for him to be in that rotation. I feel like people like Emmanuel Butler is going to step up. I feel like people like Deontay Harris is going to step up. I feel like some of these other guys, Jawan Johnson, Marquise Callaway, are going to step up. So I really just feel like you got to be careful, man. And you can't just sit up here and just be like, oh, man, the Saints drafted me. I ain't got nothing to worry about. If Tre'Quan Smith comes in and just thinks that he just can give a lackluster or just an okay performance in training camp and think that he's going to keep his job, then he has another thing coming, man. These guys, I'm watching, these guys work out and these guys are out here on the field and they're running routes. And I mean, I'm looking at these guys getting stronger, getting more physical, and turning into a physical specimen and maximizing, the opportunities that they have by, like going out here and putting their best foot forward for strengthening and conditioning. And I'm just worried about Tre'Quan Smith, man, because I just feel like these guys are going to come in and they're going to eventually not have a place for Tre'Quan. So Tre'Quan better step it up. He better put his best foot forward, man, and he better continue to, do what he have to do. I mean, that's just my honest opinion on Tre'Quan. Do you think Sean Payton is a Hall of Fame coach right now? Same fan 102. To be honest with you, yes, I do. A lot of people look at him, as a Hall of Fame coach. I do feel like he probably needs just one more Super Bowl ring to solidify that. I think the one thing that he has on his side is the fact that he has a Hall of Fame. He has a Hall of Fame quarterback. And most of the times when a coach has a Hall of Fame quarterback, they end up going to the Hall of Fame themselves. Especially like when they spend X amount of years with them. You know what I'm saying? When you look at people like Don Coryell, people like him, even though they never made it to the Super Bowl, he's one of those guys that I feel like, is a Hall of Famer. Marty Schottenheimer is another guy. These are guys who have played, have been successful. And, these are the type of guys that I think going to end up in the Hall of Fame without Super Bowl rings. So Sean Payton, who I feel like a lot of people look at him, turning the Saints organization around when the Saints were really terrible. They weren't known for being a winning franchise. And then you bring in Drew Brees, and Drew Brees wasn't the Drew Brees he was in San Diego. So you have to take that into account. So I think a lot of people will consider him to be in the Hall of Fame. But me personally, to solidify that and not have him wait for about 15, 20 years, he'll have to win another Super Bowl. Multiple Super Bowls kind of help the campaign of a coach to make the Hall of Fame. But I think they look at him as being a Hall of Fame type coach. But if he was to get one more Super Bowl ring, I think that would solidify it. How about Johnson, the running back? You talking about Dwayne Washington. Dwayne Johnson is the Rock. Dwayne Johnson is the most electrifying man in sports entertainment. Now, Dwayne Washington is the running back for him. I think he played for Detroit for a little while. He went to the University of Washington. Ironically, his last name is Washington. But anyway, Dwayne Washington is a good, solid running back, and I got a lot of respect for the guy. Anytime he comes in, you can say it's garbage time. You can say nobody cares. When he played in that Week 17 game against the Carolina Panthers back in 2018. But he still was out there balling, man. And I just think that sometimes the New Orleans Saints kind of shoot themselves in the foot because they overthink things, especially Sean Payton. He overthinks the play on the field. He wants to overthink, underthink, undermine, overmine the opposition. And sometimes he makes things harder than what they have to be. And that's something that always just kind of frustrates me about Sean Payton. And you look at some of these coaches now, they're not worried about what the defense think I'm going to do. They don't care. These guys are using 2 and 3 running backs in order for them to pound, the defense and also wear them down. And I feel like he just needs to follow suit. You look at the stats over the years for the New Orleans Saints. They've always had issues with running the football. And I think that the reason why we as Saints fans have an issue with running backs, and we ask the question like, man, why we have such a drop-off at running back? Why this guy not good enough? Why we need to do this? We need to trade for this running back. I don't really think it's the running back's fault. And, I really don't, man. I think the reason why we talk about these guys is because the lack of commitment by Sean Payton to these guys. I think he's just so impatient that he wants to just drive the ball down the field every single time, throw the ball a million gazillion times a game just to try to add what they call tempo and, keep on pressing the issue. But in my opinion, not if you keep on talking about tempo is only playing into the other team's hands, especially when your team isn't that good. I mean, it's funny I said this. Back in the 80s, Don Coryell, he was the head coach of the San Diego Chargers. And they, had an offense they like to call Air Coryell. I mean, that was with Dan Fouts and Kellen Winslow and all them other cats was out there just throwing the ball all over the place. And the problem was, man, there was like doing all these different innovative offensive plays, but their defense was terrible. And sometimes, the offense has to compensate for a very lacking defense. And I feel like sometimes the Saints, they don't compensate for the fact that the defense isn't as strong as some of those other defenses are. It's rather, they get off the field way too fast because they're throwing the ball all over the place. Or it's just the simple fact that they score so fast that the defense goes out there, that's more and more opportunities that the other team can go out there and that's still putting your defense on the field. The solution to this problem is you have to control the time of possession. Sometimes, it's cool to get in those phone booth type games, where the running game has to win and has to prevail to wear down the defense. I mean, it's good for that, because it helps your defense to stay, stay hydrated and stay, flying around the field throughout the game. Now, you can say that, oh, man, it's not the offense's fault that the defense is lacking. But this is team football, folks. I mean, this is a team sport. The offense, if they're not playing well, the defense, that can hurt them because they're on the field way too much or vice versa. So I feel like the time of possession is key. And I feel like Sean Payton is one of the main reasons why we think that these running backs aren't the answer. I feel like every running back on the Saints team, in my opinion, can be pretty good somewhere else. If you put Latavius Murray, I would say with the Baltimore Ravens, like you did Mark Ingram, I think that Latavius Murray will be effective. I feel like if you was to add him with Derrick Henry and the Tennessee Titans, where they are a run-dominant team, I feel like he could do some things. Even with the 49ers, I feel like if you put Latavius Murray with them, I feel like he will be successful. It's about a commitment, folks. It's about a commitment to the run. And it's not just about, throw the ball, run the ball. And all of a sudden, like, the dude gets stonewalled for 1 or 2 yards. And all of a sudden, we like, man, this dude can't run. Well, I mean, the defense has basically been kind of, intact. But if you continuously smash into a defensive lineman over and over again, 30, 40 times a game, around the 29 or 30 carry, they're going to be tired. They're going to be frustrated. They're going to be like, man, I'm keep on running into this guy. You running into the guy, running into your shoulder, running into your knees, running into your hands. That wears you down. And I think that the Saints need to commit to the running game in order for us to really get a full assessment on what these running backs actually have. I feel like when people are judging these running backs the way that Sean Payton actually runs his offense, I feel like it's unfair to the running backs. I really do. I feel like it's unfair to them because we're not really seeing what these running backs actually have. And until Sean Payton make a commitment to the running game, until the Saints become like a top 3, top 5 running attack, then I feel like we can have an honest assessment about, what these guys actually have. When they commit and have a balanced attack, then I feel like that's when we can really say what these guys actually have. I mean, who's to say that if the Saints were like fully committed to the running game like they were, that we wouldn't have seen a year like Mark Ingram had last season with the Baltimore Ravens? Who's to say that? Who's to say that after Reggie Bush left and he had his first 1,000-yard season, with the Miami Dolphins, who's to say that if Sean Payton didn't commit to the run that he couldn't have had a season like that before he even left New Orleans? So it's all up to Sean Payton and his commitment to running the football. I'll be ripping him. Thank you very much for the $5. He says, Payton just hired me to work with the O-line on their farting game. Give me a couple months and I'll have defenders scared to move off their line. Well, I'll be ripping them. Thank you very much for the $5, brother. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully, man, you can work with them, man, because somebody needs to do something in order for that offensive line to, make sure that they get creases for Alvin Kamara. So if you can work with them, man, and we can get a couple 1,000-yard rushes, we would really appreciate it. Joe says, if Traquan wasn't Sean Payton's dude, he would have been off the roster 2 years ago. That's a very good point. I mean, you look at people like Cam Meredith. He was a guy that, had issues with injuries and stuff like that. He's no longer with the team. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have other cases where guys come in and Sean Payton don't have that type of patience. So there's some validity behind what you just said. Keen Arthur says, "Hey, TJ, I don't think Patrick Robinson will make the cut." That's interesting right there. I'm not sure if he will make the cut or not, but I do know that the Saints paid him a good amount of money, and now that money is guaranteed. And when you're dealing with guaranteed money, teams basically have a little bit more patience. They have a little bit more patience, to watch you develop, or be like, okay, man, I won't waste or squander my money, but hey, you know what I'm saying? It is what it is. I think that he might end up making a team because as long as he's in a nickel, I think he's okay, man. You put him on the outside, then you got yourself some trouble. Hell yeah, TJ, missed them Deuce McAllister days, plays he needs to bust through. Yeah, man. Deuce McAllister back in the days, it was just the fact when Jim Haslett was the head coach. One thing you could say about Jim Haslett, number one, the Saints always had a solid defense. They was always in the top 10, top 15. That's number one. Number two, they were committed to the running game. You know what I'm saying? You didn't have like the best quarterback. Of course, Aaron Brooks was straight hot garbage, okay? Threw more picks than Razor Ramon, you know what I'm saying? Had more turnovers than McKenzie's. But the Saints still had a running game. You know what I'm saying? They had a good, solid running game, okay offensive line. And, they had some pretty decent on wide receivers, man. Joe Horn, Jerome Payton, Andre Hastings, you know what I'm saying? They had some guys that were pretty, you know what I'm saying? Well, not Andre Hastings, he was gone. But Payton, Dante Stallworth, excuse me. Yeah, people like that, they had some solid receivers. You know what I'm saying? You also had Boo Williams, you know what I'm saying? A young athletic tight end. So they had some offensive weapons, so it wasn't no excuse for Aaron Brooks to be as trash as he was. But the running game was always solid, man. And that's always why we have a level of respect for Deuce McAllister when he was running the football. You know what I'm saying? The Saints was smash mouth offense when he was out there. They were running the football, big, solid, physical running attack Deuce McAllister had. Wasn't going to break nothing off or anything like that. Remind me of a poor man's Jerome Bettis back in those days, right before, Reggie Bush came. But the Saints had a running attack. And I feel like with Sean Payton brought in some offensive innovation, true, and he brought in a guy that's super accurate in Drew Brees. But one thing that I feel like he should have kept that Jim Haslett had was a running attack. And the Saints, they do not run the ball enough. I think I looked at a stat, man, over the course of the past 10 to 15 years, the Saints are in the bottom 25 of 100-yard rushers. That's pretty sad, man. As much success as the team had, for you not to have 100-yard rushers or lack thereof, that's pretty sad, man. That tells you everything that you need to know about the New Orleans Saints, man. The fact that they don't produce 100-yard rushers, but yet you have a lot of offensive success, that tells you everything you need to know about the Saints, man. There's a lack of 100-yard rushers. And think about some of the guys that the Saints had. You would think that these guys would at least have some 100-yard rushes over the past 15 years at an alarming rate. I mean, come on, man. Reggie Bush, even though he used to try to run to the sidelines, I mean, I still feel like he should have had at least a couple 100-yard games. Pierre Thomas, who was spash mouth. Pierre Thomas ain't about to go down on the first wave. He's not going down on the first gap. You know what I'm saying? It's probably going to be in the second or the third. Lionel Hamilton, you know what I'm saying? I felt like he was pretty decent. Mike Bell, who was a battering ram. Kyrie Robinson, before he ended up getting hurt. Darren Sproles. I mean, the list goes on and on of guys that you're like, man, how in the world can the Saints be in the bottom, the bottom 25 to 30 when it comes to like not having 100-yard rushes? That's pretty doggone sad. And I feel like this is the problem that we continuously have in the Who Dat Nation, where we have optimism every single year. And, the Saints pretty much tease us with 10 and 11 win seasons. But when it's time to come to the playoffs, when it's time to run the football, they aren't really used to it because they were used to throwing the football all over the place. And when teams are really in the film room, really buckling down on what you are lacking and how to slow you down, it's pretty sad that we always reach this point in the playoffs where the Saints want to throw the football all over the place, but teams are really buckling down, making sure that they neutralize your passing game, and you don't have a running game efficient enough to be able to compensate for the lack of passing game coming in the playoffs. So hopefully they fix that, man, because it's absolutely ridiculous to me. Let's see. Josh and Jesus says, your video is fire, TJ. Thank you, man. No problem, man. I'm glad you like it. Shouts out to Josh and Jesus, man. Josh and Jesus has a GoFundMe page going on right now. He's attending Iowa State University. He's in his final semester, man. He needs your help. He needs some help trying to, raise enough money for his last semester in college, man. And we want Josh to graduate from college, so he has a GoFundMe page going on right now. You all donate, what you can. He's not asking for a million gazillion dollars, $5, $10, wherever you can donate will really help him. It's a really good cause, man. Education is the key. So if you, have some money, please support Josh and, as he tries to finish up his educational journey. Good luck to you, brother. Yes, TJ, that's our theme for the Saints. Run the football or run the rock or run like hell, like something, like whatever campaign we got going on, you need to have it, run the football, run the rock, tote that pill, whatever you want to call it. I just feel like they just need to commit themselves to the running game. It's just absolutely pathetic how good this team is and how solid you have the running game, when you actually have guys that can run the football and you don't. That's the frustrating thing about it. TJ, if you could rate the secondary 1 to 10 this year, what would you rate it? Adrian, to be honest with you, if I can rate the secondary on a scale of 1 to 10, I give them about a 6.5 or a 7. I say a 6.5 or 7 because even though on paper, their starters look really good. I mean, these guys look great, incredible, right? I mean, we're looking at these guys. We got Jack Rabbit on one side, Marshawn Lattimore on another. We got DJ Swearinger. We got Malcolm Jenkins coming back, Marcus Williams. On paper, like these guys look really good. CJ Gardner-Johnson. But my biggest issue with the New Orleans Saints has never been the solidarity of the secondary. It never has been that. My issue is the lack of depth in the secondary and guys being one-dimensional. The thing about the New Orleans Saints, and I feel like this is something that constantly comes back to haunt them and bite them in a you-know-what, is the fact that they allow people to come to the team that are one-dimensional. I mean, it's just something that continuously kills the Saints. For example, if a wide receiver is really fast, he runs a 4.3 or 4.4. What do the Saints do? They put them in 9-route packages. You know what I'm saying? They make them run a deep post or they make them run a streak route. And they don't try to capitalize or try to help this guy better his game where he don't seem one-dimensional. If a guy big and physical and he's a wide receiver, what they'll do, they'll put him like in a goal line situation like Brandon Coleman or something like that, or even with Marcus Colston back in the day, even though he could do more things. The Saints, they don't try to, make these guys better. They don't try to better these guys. They don't try to strengthen their route running. They don't try to take a guy that's super fast and put him on the inside where he can just run a skinny post or make him run a 10 and in. Like they don't do these things. Whatever a guy is good at, they just use it to their advantage and they just parade them out there. And it's the same thing on defense. They don't try to work with a guy on his hands and his footwork if he's on the line. If he's a fast guy, he's a physical guy, what they do, they put him in on third down on a NASCAR package. I mean, what would happen, for example, if Davenport does go down again? Now you have a guy who just in a game on a NASCAR package, and you expect for him to be an every down defensive lineman. Well, he's getting whooped at the line of scrimmage by the offensive line. Nobody's helping him work on his footwork. Nobody's helping him work on his hands. And if they are asking him to work on his hands and his footwork, it's not to a degree of a starter like a Davenport. Those are the guys that you're like, okay, man, you got to get your hand and your footwork down pat. Well, have that same type of energy for that backup like Trey Hendrickson or that backup like Hall Granderson. Have that same type of energy for those guys. And I feel like that will hurt the Saints when it comes to the secondary as well. You have a lot of guys that are good on the inside, but if Marshawn Lattimore or Jack Rabbit Jenkins go down, you can't put these guys on the outside because you spent majority of your time focusing in on Lattimore and Jenkins being on the outside. Well, these guys can get hurt. And what are you going to do? You're going to put a nickel on the outside who has been practicing nickel throughout the week, who has been practicing nickel in training camp. And these guys go out there and they just get roasted and toasted if somebody goes down. And it's just absolutely sad that you continuously do the same thing over and over again and you expect the result to be different. You need depth at the secondary. You need guys that can step in on the inside and the outside. I mean, look at the Philadelphia Eagles last season. I mean, they were decimated in the secondary. I mean, absolutely destroyed, trashed. I mean, Malcolm Jenkins was like the only person that started all season long. They were plugging and playing and copying and pasting all these guys all over the field. You know what I'm saying? Like they were trying their best to try to keep a solid secondary. And they did just enough to make it to the playoffs. And I'm just wondering to myself, how in the world can you ask a guy to play safety one week and an outside corner the next week, and these guys are shutting teams down and teams are only scoring 19 and 17 points on this team? Like, huh? And it wasn't the fact that they were getting like penetration or they was getting to the quarterback. That wasn't the case. I mean, they were really locking down on these receivers. So I wonder, like, why don't the Saints just try to follow suit? And why don't they realize that when one guy goes down, you put a nickel on the outside and the result is still the same? It's rather you have to look at your coaches and be like, hey, man, why isn't this guy ready to play on the outside? Why is it that he suffers when he goes to the outside, but he plays pretty solid on the inside? We need to work it with these guys both ways. The Saints need to start getting cornerbacks that can play both ways. You want guys that are physical on the inside and physical on the outside. I understand that some of these guys don't have top end speed to be able to keep up with some of these guys on the outside, like the Julios and the Chris Godwins and the Mike Evans of the world. But at the same time, you still want guys to be able to be physical and be able to, kind of beat up these receivers. And this is something that the Saints have suffered with for the past 3 to 4 years. It's been the same old song and dance. And as a Saints fan, I have to say that I'm really tired of watching this over and over again. But they are very solid secondary as starters, okay? That's the reason why I say a 6.5, okay? They're a solid 6.5 because they don't have anybody outside of that. I mean, do you trust the backup of Marshawn Lattimore to come in and give you – you're not going to give the same production. There's a reason why Lattimore is a starter. But do you trust him enough to be like, man, we're going to be okay until Lattimore gets back? No, you don't. I mean, it's just the truth. You do not trust the backup to Marshawn Lattimore. You do not trust the backup to Janoris Jenkins. You are crossing your fingers and hoping and wishing and praying that these guys can play a 16-game season. Me personally, Who Dat Nation, I am very concerned about the Saints secondary. It looks good on paper. If I'm playing Madden and I cut off the injuries for the franchise mode and I simulate the season, I'm kind of confident that the Saints end up in a divisional round or the NFC Championship game, okay, if I'm playing Madden. But unfortunately, life don't work like that. Injuries occur, guys get hurt, and you know what I'm saying? You need guys that are going to be able to step up. The next man up mentality does not work in the secondary for the Saints. It just does not. And I'm very concerned about that. So on a scale of 1 to 10, Adrian, I'm going to have to give them a 6.5, my friend. Let's see. Let's go to someone else. I feel like Eli Apple could have been a good cornerback for depth. I agree with that, Anthony. I really feel like Eli Apple could have been okay on the inside. This is a guy that's about 6'1", 210, 211 pounds. That's a big physical guy that you line up on the inside, man. And he can beat up on some folks. That's just the truth. I think that if you would have kept Eli Apple, I don't think he was asking for too much bread. I don't know if just the Saints were just like, man, we done with this dude or what. But I really think he could have been a solid inside corner. And, in emergencies, I still trust him enough to be able to play on the outside. I mean, we've seen him play on the outside. Now, you can say he left much to be desired, but I still trust him to a point where I feel like he can play pretty good for a couple games if we miss out on a Jackrabbit or a Lattimore. I really do. I mean, he played pretty well when Lattimore went down for those couple games and he went up against Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Man, he was out there balling. So I would trust him enough in a few games. Now, over a 16-game season, you might see some ups and downs. But just to plug him in because Lattimore Jackrabbit is hurt, I trust him to actually play pretty well. Who was a better Saint, Kenny Steele or Tre'Quan Smith? Man, that goes without question. Kenny Kenny Stills was better than Traquan Smith. And I guess, like, if I'm looking at these guys right for their first few years, Kenny Stills was better than Traquan Smith. I mean, that goes without saying, man. I mean, Kenny Stills was pretty good. A lot of people were upset when he ended up leaving. Sean Payton used multiple running backs to share the load. Soon as they get hot, Payton have take them out instead of building off their momentum. Payton will get a 10-yard run, then pass the next 2 plays. Yep, that's him. No patience for the running game. None at all. You know what I'm saying? So quick to try to throw the football, trying to throw the ball all over the place, trying to wow the crowd. I ain't about all that. I feel like his ego is a big issue. Any updates on Clowney? No, same old. Nobody has signed Clowney yet. He hasn't committed to any team, so pretty sure it's going to come up pretty soon as we get closer to training camp. Our CBS wasn't ready when Lattimore went down and offensive tackle Patrick Robinson came in and got toasted. He said overtime. Okay, I thought you would say he's slow as offensive line. But okay, but he said in OT. Yeah, they wasn't ready, man. And they got exposed too. Like as soon as Patrick Robinson came in the game, Kirk Cousins knew right then and there. When he seen him go down, he was like, I got him. For these guys to say that these guys don't do film study, I mean, they definitely did film study on him. It's almost like in a Super Bowl back in 2009. I think Tracy Porter ended up leaving the game, and the Saints replaced him with Usama Young. And as soon as Tracy Porter went out the game, Peyton Manning threw that fade to Pierre Garçon for a touchdown, and it was on Usama Young. They watched him. He knew. As soon as Tracy Porter went down, here come Usama Young, and they took advantage of it. It was the same way in that wild card game. When they saw that Lattimore was down, when they seen that he was out the game, they ended up putting in Patrick Robinson. And what did Kirk Cousins do? He went right to Adam Thielen. He realized that was a mismatch, and he took advantage of it. That's just good film study. Do you feel that Aaron Glenn is a great secondary coach? It seems like he has failed with Ken Crawley and Eli Apple at the second cornerback spot. I really do feel like he's a good, solid secondary coach. I will say this, man. He brought a level of confidence to the secondary. They talk about it all the time in practice, man. These guys are yip-yapping, and, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's been several times with Sean Payton. When Sean Payton has talked to Aaron Glenn and told him, man, you need to kind of get your secondary to kind of pipe down a little bit because these guys are really flying around the field with a level of confidence. So he did bring that interesting dynamic to the New Orleans Saints. So the only problem is I just feel like their technique is just not good. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just feel like they need to work on their technique. I feel like the Saints, instead of trying to get guys on the ground at times when they give up big plays, I think they just sometimes, just try to do way too much. Like, for example, like if you give up a 30-some yard play, it turns to a 50-yard play because you're trying to pull the ball out the wide receiver hands for 20 yards. Well, sometimes it's just best to take that L. You know what I'm saying? Like if it's a 35-yard play, just get them down on the ground. Now just think about this. Even when we talk about George Kittle, that last play on the 4th and 2. Now, Jimmy Garoppolo, they would have converted it, but who's to say if these guys weren't trying to pull, to pull on George Kittle for another 20 yards, they would have been in field goal range. If they would have just got the guy down on the ground, the damage already been done. He already converted the 4th down play as a 1st down. But they still aren't past the 50-yard line. They still aren't in Saints territory. You know what I'm saying? Like, so the way I look at it, like they try to do way too much. So I don't know if that's something that they need to kind of peel back a little bit. I understand that turnovers are key, but sometimes it's about instinct and film study. Like sometimes you got to know what the wide receiver is going to do. Maybe you can jump in front of a route and get a pick instead of just trying to yank on the ball. There's been a lot of plays like that from the Saints that has cost them in games because they're so focused on trying to get the turnover and I guess like the guy embarrassing them or getting the yards that he needs. Like just get him down on the ground. The damage already been done. We definitely need more cornerback depth. Apple wasn't nearly as bad as people portray. He was better than P. Rob first go round with us. Yeah, I agree with that. Patrick Robinson had a couple good years with the Eagles, and he got back with New Orleans. So, but he ended up being injured and stuff like that. So I don't know. Do you think the Saints will make another big midseason trade, like trading for Patrick Peterson? I think it depends on how the season goes, Gerald. I don't know if they're going to just come out and just do it. The Saints kind of just focus on how the season is going, what happens to players in the middle of the season, and then they try to, do something. But if the guys are playing pretty good, I mean, I don't see no reason why they can, try to get somebody like Patrick Peterson. I don't know. But if somebody goes down and there's an opportunity for Patrick Peterson to become a Saint, why not? Man, we need Fred Thomas back and a secondary as a backup. TJ, when you dropping it? I have to get your information. I got to get your information on the, on the GoFundMe. Josh, I don't know. I don't know if you want me to put it on your page or you just want me to just post it so people can take a look at it. I mean, any way you want to do it. I mean, I'm okay with it. So I'm not sure because I don't have your GoFundMe information in order for me to paste it on your page. But I'll be glad to, I'll be glad to post it here on the State of the Saints, man, where people can actually check out the video. Once again, man, Josh and Jesus, he's trying to raise money to finish his last semester of college at Iowa State. So we got a GoFundMe going. I'm probably going to post a video on my page so y'all can check it out. And I encourage you all to please share it with your friends and stuff like that so Josh can get the money that he needs in order for him to finish up, man. So y'all make sure that y'all support that. And you'll also be on the Facebook page of the State of the Saints. And like I said, hopefully he get the money that he needs, man. Which wide receiver do you think will make it as wide receiver 5 or 6? Probably somebody like Lil Jordan Humphreys or somebody like Juwan Johnson. I see somebody like Marquise Callaway playing right away. I feel like Juwan Johnson, who's a possession receiver, might end up playing later on, maybe getting activated off the practice squad. What's good, Who That Family? TJ, my broski. What's on today's agenda? Well, Kirion, I'm a special guest on Big Q's podcast today. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking forward to that. So we're going to be talking about New Orleans Saints on his channel. You all check it out. It's Pro Media. You know what I'm saying? Pro Media is his page. So we'll be talking about New Orleans Saints with him. And that's about it, man. Talib is a good veteran cornerback for us. What do you think? I think so. I think that if he's still out there and he's still available and he still wants to play and the Saints think that he still has something left in the tank, why not? I mean, he goes out there and he performs really well. He's still shutting people down at the age of 34, I think. So why not? The Saints will figure out some way to sit Breeze for 4 or 5 games this year. If he don't get an injury, they'll make one up. They know he can't play for a full season. That's interesting. I don't see that happening, though, man. I see Drew Brees has way too much pride for that. Way too much pride. Posting it here is what I thought you would do. Yeah, man, I got you. I posted it once this is all said and done. So you believe Winston will start 5 games this season to keep Drew fresh for the playoffs? No, I don't. I feel like Drew has way too much pride to be sitting on the sidelines if he's not hurt. I don't see that happening. And neither do I see Sean Payton doing that. Now, I see these guys probably playing in a game, you know what I'm saying, where you might have a package or two for them, but I don't see them just completely sitting Drew Brees like he Kawhi Leonard or something. No, I don't see that happening. TJ, I had my first actual football practice today. I hope the Saints can get working ASAP and as safe as possible. Yeah, Anthony, man, good luck to you, brother. You know what I'm saying? Be safe out there. Hope you have a good, solid season, man. Looking forward to hearing some good things from you. And, hopefully, everything work out for you, my friend. Scooby Do It Too says, who that? Gerald says, can you see the Saints splitting reps between Drew Brees and Taysom Hill? I don't know about splitting reps, but I think you're going to see a larger sample size under center for Taysom Hill this season. I really believe that. Let me see, Scoob, my main man, what's happening? Shouts out to Scooby, and he says Jerry. Man, shouts out to everybody that is joining the live right now. I really do appreciate you all. Thank you all so much, man. Like, this is always the highlight of my day, talking New Orleans Saints. I really do appreciate that. Trying to see if I can see any other Saints news that may came down the pipe that I missed. I mean, it's been relatively slow when it comes to the news with the New Orleans Saints. Haven't seen much come from the New Orleans Saints. Just a few articles here and there, but we basically just kind of just talked about everything already. They talked about Tommy Stevens and stuff like that, him being compared to Taysom Hill. A lot of people feel like he's the next Taysom Hill just when, I guess, Drew Brees retire and let's just say Taysom Hill becomes the starter. Or if Taysom Hill end up leaving because Jameis Winston stays, they'll have somebody that has the same similar skill set as a Taysom. I don't know, man. I don't think Taysom is a plug-and-play type player. I think he has a lot of heart. He's a really determined guy. And I really don't feel like you can just plug and play that type of production or that type of heart just because they have the same similar skill set. I don't see that happening. I wanted to make sure that I let everybody know the right name of Big Q's podcast. It's called The Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys. So that's the name of the show I'll be on tonight, The Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys. So y'all check it out. Do you think we have some of the best special team units in football? Yeah, I do. I really do. I think they're really, really good. If Jameis does play 5 games, what our record going to be in those games? I say 3-2. Yeah, it could be. If you combine that in a running game, who's to say? Might have the same record as a Teddy Bridgewater. You be on basketball, TJ. If so, which team you repping? I'm not a real big basketball fan. I don't really follow basketball like that. I only watch basketball during the postseason and the playoffs. I feel like it gets a little bit more interesting. But, I'm always rooting for the Pelicans and stuff like that. I want to see them successful. Zion Williamson made me want to watch basketball, just to see how he's going to fare with the Pelicans. But I'm not one of those guys that just diehard basketball fan. I feel like basketball a little bit soft. I feel like these guys are a little soft, and you sneeze on these boys is a foul. The majority of their stars get most of their points at the foul line. You know what I'm saying? Like, they can't do nothing to them. They're not really physical. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know, man. Basketball just kind of took a step back, in my opinion. I like guys who are physical and stuff like that. I like the, I guess I'm an old head when it comes to basketball. You know what I'm saying? Like in a, 97, 98 when Jordan was playing and stuff like that, man, when them boys was out there and, points was hard to come by and, the stars were really stars because they earned it, not because, the media wants them to be stars and, what I'm saying, the referees catapult them into stardom with the fouls and the whistles. I'm good on that, okay? So not really a big fan, but I do watch in the postseason. TJ, we finally get to watch you and Big Q at the same time. I'm too hyped. Yeah, man, I'm really excited about it too, man. I'm happy to be a part of, the show. And like I said, I'm looking forward to it. Do you see Harris seeing more snaps due to special teams or wide receiver battles? Yeah, I do. I think that he's going to be on the field a lot more. I think that the Saints are going to use him in different ways. This guy's really good, man. I mean, he showed a lot of heart when he was in for a few reps. TJ, have you seen the latest news on the 49ers trolling the Saints? Ridiculous. Yeah, Jerry, I seen that. I didn't really pay that much attention to it because, honestly, it just wasn't worth talking about. I saw it, but I didn't really want to talk about it. It just, I don't know. You can talk about that game and, I guess, the media blew up the George Kittle catch and stuff like that, making him look like he a Superman and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, what did they actually earn? Like, they earned a spot in the Super Bowl and an L on top of that. Nobody's going to care. Nobody remembers who was the opponent in the Super Bowl. They only remember who won the Super Bowl. So the way I look at it, yeah, that was a good game. Yeah, they won. Congratulations to them. But at the end of the day, what did it get them? It got them the number 1 seed and an L in the Super Bowl. So Anthony, thank you very much for the $5, brother. He says, thanks for wishing me luck at practice, TJ. Coach said I need to work on my farting game. Well, man, I'll be ripping him for that one. You know what I'm saying? I'll be ripping him for that one, my brother. I mean, he'll help you out on that. You know what I'm saying? All things fart, we refer to I'll be ripping him. State of the Saints versus Sports Coma Eagles perfection. Well, I appreciate that, man. You're putting a lot of pressure on the dude to perform on the show or whatever, but thank you, man. Happy birthday to Zion, by the way. Zion Williamson birthday is today. If so, happy birthday to Zion. I wish him many more. And I would wish him all the success, man. They about 5 games back from making the playoffs. They chasing Memphis, and it's a long shot, man. They need some help, and they need to win these games. But nevertheless, I think that, they're going to be up to the challenge. And if not this year, man, I'm really optimistic about what the Pelicans actually have going forward, man, with him and Lonzo Ball and, some of these other young players that they have on the team, man. I'm not sure if Drew Holiday going to end up sticking around. I feel like, at first that was his team once Anthony Davis left. I mean, you heard like the general manager and the coaches say that. But I really feel like, they probably going to end up going in another direction away from Drew Holiday, which I like Drew Holiday. He's a good defensive player and a solid player, but I think they might go a different direction. And also with the head coach, man, I'm just not a fan of him either. I don't feel like he the answer to the question. And I feel like you're probably going to have to look at another head coach, maybe Coach Zion, if you're trying to make it deep into the playoff. No disrespect to Alvin Gentry. I mean, he's a well-respected guy, but we talking about winning, folks. So I don't know if Alvin Gentry is the answer. I agree, definitely getting softer every year. Yeah, basketball is soft, man. With the potential emergence of a young wide receiver. I remember when the NBA was more fun in the 90s. That's why I watched old school basketball. Yeah, man, I remember that, as a kid growing up. Man, these guys out here, man, they just soft. Like, even when I play in the gym, man, dudes out there getting mad and stuff like that. They won't come to the lane. They don't want you to play no defense. It's just sad, man, the way that some of these young cats play ball these days, man. Back in the day, dudes just used to be physical and stuff like that, man. It was understood. But now these guys, they just wear their hearts on their sleeve. They won't fight every 5 minutes, If you try to, get a little physical with them, like, I don't understand these young cats no more. I really don't. Talk about be a Saint, wear a face mask. I was about to attack a 49ers fan for that. Yeah, I saw it, man. Like I said, I just didn't care. I mean, it's not like they won a Super Bowl because of that. They got the number 1 seed, but they did nothing with it. Good afternoon, TJ. Do you think we have a football season? Sunday won't be the same without it. I'm hoping so, man. I'm hoping that we have a season, and all signs lead to us having a season. So I don't see no reason why they wouldn't. Drew a beast on defense. Yeah, he a beast on defense, man. I remember when they played against Trailblazers in the playoffs when he locked down Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard couldn't do absolutely nothing on him, but I do feel like they wanted to make this Zion's team, and I feel like Drew Holiday, there might be that envious dynamic for it. You go and you leave the Sixers, you end up coming to the Pelicans when Anthony Davis was here, when clearly it was Anthony Davis's team, and then he leaves, and now it's your turn to be the leader, and nobody's really paying attention to you. Everybody's looking at Zion, asking questions about Zion, when Zion going to play, how many minutes Zion is going to have. And so I do feel like it's almost like one of those situations, if I can think about the Carolina Panthers and Cam Newton with Steve Smith. Steve Smith was the unsung leader of the Carolina Panthers, but, a young Cam Newton came along, and, Steve Smith demands a certain level of excellence, and Cam Newton is not really wired that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not really wired that way. So to keep the peace, they decided to let Steve Smith go to Baltimore, and they allow Cam Newton to be the leader and the face of the Carolina Panthers franchise. So I look at that the same way when it comes to Zion Williamson and Drew Holiday. Not the fact that he can't play. It's just the fact that I feel like they want to get somebody else in here that, would be able to feed off of Zion and understand that Zion is the future. He's being molded to be the leader of the franchise, and that's it. ATJ be balling up in the gym, man. I don't know about all that. Like, man, me being 34 years old, my best days are behind me. Most of the time when I'm in the gym, man, it's just because of cardio. I'm not as good as I used to be. I can't jump as high as I used to be. But like when I was like in my prime, like in my early 20s, yeah, I couldn't be touched. I could not be touched. Kobe Bryant was my guy, dude. Passed away on my, I guess you mean birthday. Yeah, that's sad, man. Kobe Bryant, man. I still can't believe he gone. Big Q and TJ, this is epic. Man, looking forward to being a part of the show. Kev, you got that right. Man, y'all putting a lot of pressure on your boy. But like I said, I really do appreciate it, man. Did you ever play football when you were younger? Yeah, man, I played football. Yeah, I definitely did, man. I played wide receiver. It was pretty good, man. You know, I was pretty good at it. I had pretty good hands, like I say, you know, but I don't know, man. It's just something that just kind of passed me by, man. I had like different hamstring issues and stuff like that, prohibiting me from being on the field. And I don't know if I had like the passion to like make it to the next level. I feel like if I had the passion to make it to the next level, I probably would be playing in NFL. I really believe that wholeheartedly. I really believe that. Like I really, you know what I'm saying, could have ended up in NFL. I had the speed, I had the hands, I was a decent route runner. And but you know, sometimes like if your heart not really into something, then you probably don't give it your all. So that was probably my issue. TJ has better hands than Ted Ginn. I agree with that. I do. I agree with that one. I agree with that one. I do believe that I got better hands than Ted Ginn Jr. I'm not as fast as Ted Ginn, but I guarantee my hands are better than his. What's the name of the show you gonna be on again? It's called The Sports Coma with Big Q. The Sports Coma. So that's the show I'll be on. About to go ahead up out of here, man. But I want to say thank you all for checking out the live here on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you're watching it. Thank you so much for your love and your support. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com. Search The State of the Saints Podcast. Also on Facebook, search The State of the Saints Podcast. Audio version available on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Wherever you get your podcasts, I'm pretty sure the State of the Saints Podcast is there. You can also activate by using Alexa. Just say, Alexa, play the State of the Saints Podcast. It will give you the most recent episode. Probably will give you the last episode that we had when I went live. So thank you all very much. Once again, tonight, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be on the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys. Okay, I think it's you can search Pro Media as well. I think it'll come up. But I'm looking forward to being on the show with Big Q and look forward to seeing you all there as well. And also continue to support Josh and Jesus. You probably see him in the chat. Make sure that you guys, support his cause if you can. The GoFundMe will be available immediately following this. I'm going to post it to the State of the Saints Podcast so you all can check out the video and you'll get the link on how can you donate and everything like that. So Casual Dex, I seen you come in. And also, man, thank you very much for your email as well, man. I checked that out too. So thank you so much. And thank you all very much once again for checking out the State of the Saints. Till next time, all I got to say is, who dat?